CCTV pause.
This is a station break. We'll resume. So this is the January 19th meeting of the Concord Select Board, and I'm the chair, Alice Kaufman. This meeting is being recorded and being broadcast on CCTV. Tonight's evening is, we'll conduct a few pieces of business before the main discussion this evening, which I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are here to participate in, and that's the discussion of Estabrook Woods and Estabrook parking. I think what I will do is start with our business part of the meeting. It'll take just a few minutes, and then we'll begin the discussion of Estabrook Woods, and I'll set some ground rules for that when we get to that item. So tonight we have a consent agenda that includes the town accountant's warrants and the minutes from November 16 and 30 of 2015. Do you have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We also have executive session minutes for November 30, 2015. A motion for that?
I move to approve the executive session minutes for November 30 not to be released.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. A few words to town manager's report today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it brief. I'll be presenting the 2017 town budget to the Finance Committee this coming Thursday night. The Select Board will be receiving copies of that tomorrow. Next Thursday, January 28th, the MBTA will host a public meeting in the hearing room of the Townhouse at 6 p.m. To take public comment on proposed fare increase and schedule changes for the spring. And the public is welcome to attend that meeting on the 28th. The warrants for the special town meeting were delivered to residents' homes over the weekend. There's 2 articles on that warrant, and the public hearing for that 2-article warrant is next Wednesday, January 27th at 7:30 in the Townhouse. And the annual town meeting warrant has gone to the printer and will be delivered to homes next week, so they'll be getting lots of mailings from us. The West Concord Beef Company has proposed a 120-seat restaurant at the Brookside development, and it's received approval from the Planning Board and the Board of Appeals, and is now working its way through the Board of Health approval process. So that will eventually be coming to the Select Board for approval. Again, a 120-seat restaurant on Beharrell Street, and that's all I have to report.
Okay.
Is there a parking waiver involved with that,
There
Chris?
were parking waivers involved.
How many spaces do you recall?
I think it was about 50% of the necessary parking, because the commuter parking lot is adjacent. So.
Is adjacent to it. Thank you. All right, now we've come to the part of the agenda where I believe all of you are here to participate in. So I want to acknowledge several things. First of all, our clock is gone, so we'll be looking at our smartphones to make sure that we stay on schedule. We have a hard stop this evening at 7:30 because we are convening next door for the town caucus. So we will try to listen to everybody's comments in the next hour, and I'll try to be mindful of the time that each person has at the microphone. We're going to start with a presentation from the Chief of Police, and he will tell us, we'll turn to him for some facts, some observations, and the things that led up to the decision to do a trial period for the parking restrictions that were put on Estabrook Road. I will then ask people who would like to speak to come up to the table over here to a microphone. You'll introduce yourself, tell us where you live, and then keep your comments brief. We have read absolutely everything that's been sent to us, and I acknowledge that we received a lot of emails, phone calls, letters, photographs, and on both sides of this issue, if there are actually 2 sides, I think there's a lot of common ground. People appreciate Estabrook Woods, appreciate being able to visit Estabrook Woods, and I don't think anyone is looking to curtail that. I think Estabrook Woods is a prime resource in our community, and we love our woods. I think we're looking for the common ground for what seems reasonable for providing access as well as enjoying the woods. And I think that's probably what we're going to hear tonight are some people's comments about what they think should be done. We received a lot of very thoughtful recommendations. This evening, we're not going to be making any decisions about what happens. This is the first real, fact-finding. It's the first time we're getting to hear or meet most of you who have opinions about the woods and about parking. So this is the first of a conversation. We'll see what we learned from tonight. And I really do appreciate the letters and emails that we've gotten, because there were some very, very good, thoughtful recommendations for consideration. And with that, I'm going to...
Just a request. Alice, if we could just make sure the select board gets to ask all their questions
before.
regarding anything the police department might be reporting, or, you know, questions about access to Estabrook Woods, that would be good before public comment.
Yep. That's
Thank you.
good. So did everybody hear that? We will listen to, the first part of the conversation will be a presentation to the board, of which we will interact with the chief of police and before opening this to public comment, and then the floor will be open for public comment. And again, I apologize that this room is overflowing. Hopefully, we can manage it with people in the hallway and being a cramped room here. But there are no chairs. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to the chief of police and have you tell us what your observations and your findings are so far.
Madam Chair, members of the Select Board, my name is Joseph O'Connor. I'm Chief of Police, Town of Concord. With me tonight is Richard Hodgson. He's a safety inspector for the police department. Before I get into this will probably be Inspector Hodgson's last public meeting. He'll retire from the police department. Not because of this.
What timing?
Rick has served 38 years with the police department, an additional 4 years, so 42 years of great service to the town, and I was fortunate to have him work for me and have him here with me tonight, because he does have a lot of knowledge, historical knowledge of the problems in town in this area, and was able to impart a lot to me as we made some decisions as we move forward and put this pilot into place. So I think everyone knows a lot of what the issues are. There's been a lot of talk, and I too have received many of the letters, very thoughtful letters from many of the residents on both sides of the issue. And I want to be clear, my position, and I think everyone is for people to have access to those woods in a controlled, safe manner. And one of the things that we've had, looking at some of the data, we've had a number of calls. The calls are continuing to tick up. In 2013, there were 15 calls on Estabrook Road. 2014, 32. And 2015, there were 80 calls. Now, the vast majority are split between animal control issues as well as parking issues. And in 2014, there was an issue where a person had to be rescued, a cross-country skier had to be rescued up in the woods, and the parking was on both sides of the road, causing difficulty for first responders to get into that area and rescue the person. The road area, as many of you know, is when you come off Barnes Hill, is narrow. The roadway there is about 14 feet. A fire engine is 8 feet, a standard fire engine is 8 feet. A car is about 6 feet, so when you get parking, it can limit access. Everyone is aware, we did have some horrific things happen. One of the residents' dog get killed with someone turning around in her driveway. Part of the pilot and agreement was we made a small turnaround down on Estabrook Road, which seems to be functioning properly, and we put in some parking spots there, put the spots in that show parallel parking along there for about, depending on the size of cars, about 9 to 10 cars can fit in that area. The select board did 850 feet north of Barnes Hill Road on the right-hand side as you come in, did agree that was no parking, and adopted that over the summer, and no parking between 299 on Estabrook Road between the driveways there in the area of the barn. And that was done to ensure that we could get parking, get emergency vehicles up further on the road. As we continue to look at the issues up there, and I think one of the things that was people did take a lot of notice is the signs down the other end, and we did put those down there as part of the pilot because of our concern of accessing that section of road. The possibility that people would be displaced from the areas that were put as designated parking areas, to use that to ensure that fire apparatus and emergency apparatus could get up the road. So that was the reasoning that we put those in place for the pilot. And, you know, I have spent some time up there talking to residents and some non-residents that use the area. Some are in this room tonight. And, you know, people have given their observations to me as well. I've gone up there on a regular basis. Usually there is spots available for people to park. There are times of the day, particularly after mothers and fathers drop off their children to school, like to go right up there, probably around between the 9:30, 10 o'clock area. There's a lot of congestion, and sometimes on the weekends. So one of the things that was done, there was some alternatives that were put out to people, that places they could park, and some people have given me the feedback that they have gone and utilized those other locations when they've noticed that those spots weren't available on Estabrook Road. One being, you know, the Chamberlain Woods access along Lowell Road. Could fit probably, I'd say, about 20 vehicles there, Monument Street, and then the unpopular one that some people have taken offense to, and we're not telling people to go to Carlisle. We're just saying that there are spots in Carlisle available. So that's really, I know there's a lot of people that want to talk on the issue. That was the mindset. Assistant Chief Judge is here if anyone does have any questions about fire apparatus and their access to it. They have taken pieces of equipment up there to see. They have told me that they need the whole road to get up there, that their preference is people be off the road if they had to get up there. The only hydrant is at the end of the street at Barnes Hill, right on the corner. They would need to lay a lot of hose to fight a fire up there, which takes time. So those are factors that we took into place when we put this pilot in place, and I'm also eager to hear from the public, the suggestions. I know we've read some good suggestions from people as some possibilities. Many of those were outside the purview of the police department and CPW, and would require the select board's action and guidance.
Questions from this board for the chief?
Can you remind us, Chief, the reasons underlying the parking ban at the top of the road closest to Barnes Hill?
The roadway there is about 14 feet, and if there was one car parked there, it would create access problems for the fire department.
So the road is actually narrower there?
It is. Inspector Hodgson measured it, 14 feet there, and then further up it goes out to
17 feet.
17 feet in the area where we have the parking now.
But that's before the bridge, right?
Below the culvert.
And if, it's your opinion that with parking just on one side of the road, there's enough clearance for emergency vehicles to get down to the end of the road or wherever they need to do, if it's a rescue of an injured skier or, you know, responding to a house call?
If the car is parked perfectly and there's no snow causing people to come out, have to come further off the edge of the pavement, down that end, if you're facing in, heading into Estabrook Road, on the left, you'll see that slopes off pretty quickly there. So there's really not an opportunity there for people to park off the road. So, you know, that's one, in the winter months, because it is very attractive to cross-country skiers, is something that we factored in when we put it in the pilot. You know, what we have seen so far is that it does seem to be working. I know there'll be some debate on that. The turnaround that we put in there is pretty much eliminated people going up into the driveways and turning around people's property. But for the most part, there has been spaces available most of the time during the day. And as I said before, there are times during the day where there is heavy usage, and also sometimes on the weekends.
And is the turnaround at the bottom large enough for emergency vehicles to turn, or are fire trucks and other emergency vehicles still required to use a driveway or back up the road?
Well, I would defer to the Assistant Chief on that, but
Okay.
that turnaround was put in place for vehicles, for the convenience of the people that will want to access the woods.
And so what would happen if your an emergency call down at the bottom to bring out an injured skier, what does that vehicle do? Use somebody's driveway to turn around to come back out?
That they could. They could, or they could back out. You know, then that'd be safely. The fire department has safety procedures put in place where they'll have a firefighter in the rear making sure that it's clear and direct the engine out. You know, our concern really wasn't getting them out after the fact. It was getting them in there should there be an emergency.
And the turnaround, is that on private property as opposed to on public property?
I believe it's on both.
It's on both, part on public, because do you know what the width of the right-of-way is? This may be not, you may not be the right person for me to ask that question.
I don't know exactly what it is. But what I will say is that the neighbors in there have worked with us to try to find solutions, and we're very open to putting that turnaround in.
This is Neil's driveway, so this is where the turn.
Are you looking at a map?
It's right here.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for?
Is there room for additional parking back away from the end of the road where the parking is now?
If you're facing out, if you're coming off the road with the barn on your right, there's a possibility that you could put more spaces there, but we believe there'd have to be some improvements. One of the things that CPW has said, because of the way the road is constructed there is erosion to not only the land, but also to the pavement. So there would probably have to be some improvements there. So when we put the pilot in place, we thought what we would do was see what happened, see what the usage was, see what the feedback that we got from the community was, and then move from there.
How many more spaces would there be room for, assuming that improvements were made?
I want to say about seven? About seven?
And
Because-
that's before one reaches the spot where the roadway narrows to 14 feet, where we don't want any parking past that point.
Oh, it's
Well, it's back even further because
adjacent to the existing almost, isn't it?
to the existing to the home, yes. As you start to go further out, you'll see that there is a dip and a ditch there, and that, you know, that's one of the things that we've heard over the years, is that some people get stuck in there. They'll
Right.
take rocks off the people's wall and so forth, put them on, not put them back. So, you know, that's really right. About 7 spots, and if there want to be more improvements, is there space there? But that area would have to be improved to allow that.
And putting in the parking restrictions, does anyone, maybe the traffic management team, look at how well used the parking is on Lowell Road and on Monument Street? I've seen a lot of cars on Monument Street. I don't know what the capacity is, and I don't know if they're routinely filled in the same way that Estabrook Road is.
Anecdotally, because I don't have the data, I would say Monument Street does fill up. Lowell Road there, Lowell Road on a regular basis. When I've checked it, there is capacity there.
I've never seen that full, maybe
I haven't either.
once.
And may I ask also, have you had calls at the other locations, the other entrances that you've mentioned to Estabrook Woods at Lowell Road or at Punkatassett?
No, because the roadway is set up differently, so it really.
So it's not about the use of the woods, it's about the parking and the use of the roadway?
It's the roadway. Estabrook is a dead-end roadway. No matter if people just turning around, it's not designed for constant traffic flow.
Now, there were some citizens who mentioned to us that they felt that the Estabrook Road parking area was actually safer than either Lowell Road or the bend in the road on Monument Street where the parking is at Punkatassett, and that cars travel faster there, it goes two ways, and that people feel unsafe getting out of their cars in that location. Have there been any reports of problems there?
We have not had accidents there that I'm aware of. However, I do understand talking to people and using Monument Street, it is a day busier, you know, not just cars, but also bicycles.
Yeah,
And it is, you
there's
know,
more
it's-
activity
it's-
on the road.
It's certainly a lot more traffic on Monument Street than Estabrook, so I understand why people feel that way.
But yeah, I think this particular location, it is unique in that it's a dead-end condition, 14-foot wide paved surface. What's the town's right-of-way on that street?
It's variable. It can be from between 40 and 50 feet, I believe, wide.
Okay,
So
so.
the pavement is not the only portion of the public
Exactly.
way.
And then also, access seems to be a little different than the other locations. I think Monument Street and Chamberlain Woods, if you are on those streets, find the space, you're walking right into the public lands, correct?
Monument Street, yes. On Lowell Road,
Yeah, that's,
No, but
that's the LCC
is
land, I believe.
access through once you pass the paved area, past the stone pylons
Through
on
the field.
Estabrook, is that is your access allowed, or is that private land?
it's private land open to the public.
Okay, just want to make that clarification.
So we know that part of the concern here is not just parking, it's people behavior. There's concerns about not as courteous dog walkers, people who seem to believe that the properties around the entrance to the trailhead are public properties to be used, which they are not. Any thoughts about, aside from parking, which is what that a lot of people here want to talk about, a lot of the comments we heard were about being mindful and respectful of the neighborhood that people are walking dogs and enjoying on the way to the public woods. Any thoughts about managing people?
Well, my experience with managing people is most people are good people who do the right thing. But
Good to hear that from a policeman.
But unfortunately, there are people who are abusing a beautiful resource that's there. The residents can speak better to that than I can. I can tell you that we have had a number of reports up there. Our animal control has confirmed some of these things occurring, as well as our officers on patrol. That being said, that is a small percentage of the people that use the
Yeah.
access.
One of the other questions that's been raised is how much of this really significant increase in calls that you've had between 2013 and the end of 2015, how much, let's see, what's the right way to ask this question? I guess the question is, how many Concord residents are involved as opposed to residents from other places that are making it necessary for the police to be called in those situations? Or is there any way to answer that question?
I don't have, I didn't drill down that far on the data. I mean, I could look at that. I don't know that we would have that. You know, there are people from, if you do Google, and I Google, there are people that post what a beautiful area it is. So, you know, some people have, we do know that people from other communities do utilize it. Now, to blame people from other communities
Yes,
and
I'm
say
treading
that
carefully here.
everyone here, everyone in town is following the rules, I don't think I could make that jump.
Any other questions before we open this for
When
Public comment?
when does this temporary order expire?
On or about February 14th.
Oh, Valentine's Day. And just to be clear, this is the usual process that you go through. You have a traffic management group that deals with particular parking situations around town, and when problems arise, there is an analysis of the situation involving the police department and public works. Anybody else?
Police and Public Works.
Okay, so police and public works, and there's consultation with the immediately affected people, and general consideration of how one might reasonably solve the problem. And then there's a trial 60-day period and any permanent changes need to be approved by this board in terms of parking.
That's dealing with traffic issues alone. The access to the resource, to get to the woods is a little more unique in this situation.
That's traffic and safety.
And safety, correct.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions before we continue? Okay, thank you very much for that. So could I,
Thank the officer for his service.
oh, yes. And Inspector Hodgkin, thank you so much for 42 years of service to our town. Slight redness to the ears, I noticed on that one. You deserve the applause.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I get a sense of, from the people who are here, how many would like to speak to us? Because I'm going to try and manage our time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
How many would like to speak?
How many would like to speak this evening?
3 in there.
So I'm going to, maybe
One
around
behind
10?
you.
I'm going to broad, looking broadly, somewhere around
It's like a little more than
10 or so.
This?
Yeah.
So it is now 6:56, if
They
I
have
can
to
read my
come up
clock.
and be identified.
So that gives us a couple of minutes per person, and I think if we stick to that, we'll be able to adjourn when we need to adjourn. Remember that this meeting is really fact-finding, to hear from the police chief, to hear your thoughts and comments. We did, again, we read everything that was mailed to us, so we thank you for providing that as background for us to be up to speed on the concerns that people have about Estabrook Woods and the parking situation. And all of that is part of our consideration when it gets to it. We may, I think we'll take a break because of town meeting scheduled ramping up and maybe come back to this in March. Although we have an expiration date of the 20th, or 14th, we may have to do something before then, but then take up the issue again of how we want to proceed as soon as we can.
Suggest to invite the chief back after it's over to give us a how did it go kind of summary.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to note that this board won't make any decisions or take any action until we have a further hearing and further opportunity for public comment. So no one should feel short shrifted today. There'll be another opportunity, and next time we'll schedule it for a bigger room.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, who would like to be our first speaker? All right, so if you'd like to come and introduce yourself, please.
Okay, my name is Luis Berspedia. I live in Dexter Road across the Orchard House. I think I should all thank the police chief that has mentioned to us something that it was entirely known to many of the members of the community, which is that there seems to be a serious emergency response problem at the end of Estabrook Road. From that perspective, and not knowing the nature of the calls that went from 15 calls in 2013 to 80 calls or something like that, and not knowing whether those calls were for a variety of reasons, and assuming that all those calls require the response of a member of the police department or the fire department, et cetera, then I suggest that this body should take seriously a study for the increase of the width of Estabrook Road, because it has become very clear that this road is entirely inappropriate in its present condition to handle almost any emergency traffic. When there's a little bit of snow, I don't think that a fire truck can go through there, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that for the safety of the residents of Estabrook Road, this road should be, its width should be increased, and it should be made safe for all the trucks and public response items that need to be passed there. The second issue is that there's a big commonality of interests in this whole matter. You see, I think that we as residents of Concord are very, very proud of the existence of Estabrook Woods. Estabrook Woods is the combination of a substantial public and private effort which has made an incredible resource available for the community. This resource It's an ancient resource, and it's entirely consistent with the spirit of the town. It's something that needs to be promoted and not curtailed. And from that perspective, we are exactly on the same side of the neighbors who live in Estabrook Road, because we share the common sense that there should be a place where people behave properly and where things go correctly, and we should all be proud of that. So as such, we are more than happy to cooperate with everyone in town to make Estabrook Woods the very best place. And from that perspective, I think that we should work together, but I do not believe that curtailing the amount of parking that we put there and creating a number of obstacles, which in my particular case means that my household just has ranked about $40 or $50 in parking tickets. I don't think that that's the answer or the solution. I think that there are common ground solutions that will address the problems of the neighbors and that will address the problems of us as residents of Concord, which do not like to see poop bags at the end of the road, or people screaming as they're going into the woods, or people not behaving as we would expect them to be. Thank you so very much for your attention.
Just so everyone here will know, that was about 2.5 minutes, so we're going to try and keep these down to just under 2 so we can get everybody's comments, and I'll do my best to do that.
You want me to do that for you, Alice, or you got it?
Yeah, you could help.
All right.
I've got a little stopwatch there, because it's hard to do both. All right, who would like to speak next? I saw at least 10 hands before. Who would like to come forward? All right. Wait, you have to announce yourself, and we can use this microphone.
I'll kneel over here. I am a Concord resident, and before I moved to Concord, Jennifer Tobin Haydock. I live on Strawberry Hill Road, and I have frequented Estabrook Woods for many, many years before I was even a Concord resident when I lived in Cambridge. And I want to speak a little bit, and I'll try to be quick, about what happened in Cambridge when Fresh Pond was closed to all but resident dogs who lived in Cambridge, which was incredibly, it's still the case, I believe. It was awful. I then lived in Somerville, and so I had to like sneak my dog in. So that's some background. Living in Concord and having this beautiful resource of Estabrook, and watching last winter, and I spoke with the resident who lives at the end on the right. I was horrified by the behavior of people who came to ski and snowshoe, absolutely horrified, parking every which way. And I felt a little bit of the Cambridge, like I didn't want people coming to that road if they couldn't respect courtesy, common courtesy. And I feel really strongly that it's a gift to not only Concord, but the greater community of the Boston area to have Estabrook. But as nice as you were about people being good people, and I believe that too, I'm a teacher, I still work in Cambridge, I love people, but the behavior on that road can be outrageous, and I don't know I don't have anything to offer except that I feel very strongly for the residents on that road that it's just abhorrent. Even I was there the other day, and I don't know where the people were coming from, but their dogs were pooping and running into the paddock, and I just feel like something has to happen to help the residents and to help the people who are respectful of the rules of the road. So thank you for having this.
Thank you. Who else would like to share your views with us? Hi there. Welcome. Will you please tell us your name?
I'm Katie Polig, and I live on 9 Holdenwood Road. And Estabrook Roads is a really nice place to go for walks, but if there are only 9 parking spots and all of them are full, then we cannot go for walks, and we'd be polluting the earth from driving there and then driving back home. Say my mom took me to Estabrook Woods and all of the spots are full, then my dog would not be able to go for walks, and dog needs walks. Estabrook Woods is a beautiful place and also town property. We need to be able to walk there. Also, this is not fair to the police or the homeowners are bossing the police around. You can't live like this. This is not fair.
Thank you. Would you like to leave that with us so that we can all read that again, your statement? Yeah? Thank you. We're keeping all of the correspondence so that we have a record of people and what they've said, and if you happen to have it written, we would take it otherwise. we have it recorded.
Good evening. My name is Dutch Leonard. I live at 267 Main Street with my wife, Catherine Angel, who can't be here tonight. We've already filed a letter with you, so I won't repeat what we said in that. I just wanted to say that here in 1984, we moved in large measure because of the open spaces of Concord. There were many other places that we could have moved to that actually had lower taxes, just as good schools, and were closer to where we worked. But we found that every time we went someplace to go do something outside, we were living in downtown Boston at the time, we wound up in Concord. And so we moved here in large part because of these public spaces. So my appeal to you tonight as the Select Board is to help us maintain public access to the publicly accessible lands of Concord. Because limiting access is going to turn out to be a one-way street. It's self-fulfilling. The fewer people who use it, if we limit it, the less value the resource will be seen to have, and we'll almost never find ways to increase access later. Just a couple of quick points about the process of trying to deal with the very legitimate issues that both the nearby landowners and also those of us who use Estabrook Road as access to the woods encounter, the behavior problems of people and so forth and so on. First of all, most of the time, as the Chief has already observed, 9 spaces are going to be plenty because most of the time it's fairly quiet and there aren't a lot of people who want to be there. On the days when it is a problem, those are the crown jewel days of Concord. Those are the days when we had 10 inches of snow and everybody and his brother wants to come out and cross-country ski. And that's the time when the resource has the greatest value, and we should be trying to maintain access, understanding the quite legitimate safety of people and safety of animal issues that have been raised. I would just observe limiting parking is not a very good way to deal with behavior, because limiting parking doesn't guarantee that the people who are getting those parking spaces are going to be the people who are well behaved. So in terms of managing people, Chief has a lot more experience in this than I do, but I would just observe, the first thing is to ask for what you want, to put up signs to tell people what they're supposed to do. How are you supposed to behave here? Where are you supposed to park? Where are you supposed to turn around? What areas are public access and what are not? Just because it's very hard to know that if you don't happen to have read all of the rules. So thank you very much, and please keep the publicly accessible lands of Concord publicly accessible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to come forward and speak this evening?
Can I just add one thing?
Come to the table, please. You have to come to the table and introduce yourself because this meeting is being recorded with the microphone.
Right, I'm Anna Winter Rasmussen. I live at 393 Estabrook Road, and we did indeed put up some signs to ask that the people did not park beyond a certain point, and those were not adhered to. So we did try to put up our own signs, and the idea that, you know, the police were basically telling us that unless it's a police sign, a town sign, that people will not pay attention to that. So that was just my comment on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Polig. I live at 9 Holdenwood Road. That was my daughter. I'm a responsible dog walker, and I love walking in Estabrook Woods. I make sure my dog doesn't poop on the trail, and if he does, I pick it up. I also make sure my dog is leashed until I'm past the horse paddock and I'm in the woods safely so he doesn't chase the horses. It's possible to get people to leash their dogs. I know we had a conversation about this the other day. It is actually possible to tell people to leash their dog and be responsible. Estabrook Woods is a town resource where my kids and I enjoy walking our dog and exploring the trails together. Like many Concord residents, our family values nature and outdoor fun. Nothing makes me happier than to see our kids and our dog running happily, joyfully through the woods with smiles on their faces and ponytails bouncing and floppy ears flapping. When the Estabrook Road landowners purchased their properties, they knew that Estabrook Road was a right-of-way into the woods. They can't decide after purchasing their home that they have the right to restrict access to other residents. 9 parking spaces is just not enough for the regular number of visitors that come to Estabrook Woods on weekday mornings after dropping the kids off at school or on weekends when families want to spend time outside. We can address the crowded roads, I think, and the need for emergency access by restricting access to just one side of Estabrook Road. Maybe we can make the road a little bit better so more that we can have more parking spots. I think that would really help and solve that erosion problem so more cars can park there. Dogs should be required to be leashed. That can be solved. Asking us to park at other trailheads is not convenient, nor is it practical, because they too have only a limited number of parking spots. It's not safe on Monument Street. I hope the town will consider adding more parking spots and reconsider the parking ban they've imposed and open up parking spaces on the left side of the road so that more cars can park on Estabrook Road.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Susanna Kay and my husband Brooks Reed, we live at 366 Estabrook Road, right opposite the Rasmussens. We're at the end, right at the trailhead. So I want to thank the Select Board for taking the time to listen, and I'd like to address some of the concerns mentioned. People say there's not enough parking. There actually is plenty of parking at multiple spots for access, and we'd like to emphasize that Estabrook Road is only one of many, many points of access. Signage has been created, and it has been created privately by the residents, not by the town, and it has actually been defaced. It has been removed. It has been thrown. It has had poop smeared on it by all these careful walkers who care about land so much. We have had horses chased. We have had donkeys harassed. I've had people running through my fields, and they'll tell me, and they have told me literally, to pound sand when I've asked them, could they please control their dogs or get off of my private property. Not everybody, and I would like to note, not everybody is like that. I had somebody whose her puppy was loose last week. She was in the pasture, in the dark, trying to get an out-of-control dog while I'm trying to bury a dog. And I had to go, and I admit I lost temper, and she actually apologized afterwards. She was very sweet. It all worked out. Major problems. We have people approaching people at the Rasmussens saying they'd like to take a shower. 3 women approached someone who's working at the Rasmussens saying they wanted to take a shower in the house and they'd make it worth the guy's while if they let him in the property. This is the sort of behavior now that is an extreme, but it runs, excuse me?
How much were they going to pay?
I don't know whether it was going to be worth his while. I don't know. I didn't see the ladies. So the comments of widening the street is a dead end. There's no need to widen it. I respectfully reply to that at the moment, right now, most of the time, there is parking available. 90% of the time, there is still parking available on the road, which means if somebody finds it inconvenient, I'm very sorry. If I go to the aquarium and the parking is full in that parking lot right by the aquarium, it's inconvenient for me, but there are many other places to park in Boston to get to the aquarium. Estabrook Road is a quiet residential road, and that is the character of the road, and everybody loves to come to a beautiful spot. We love to come to the beautiful spot. It is private property. The end of that road, that access point, is privately owned. Yes, it is owned. It has public access on the trails. That does not stop everybody from walking off of the trails, letting their dogs run off of the trails, defecate everywhere. So we adore this. We are there because we like it. We join the residents who love the land. That's why we pay the taxes, that they're also enjoying being on the land. No one has ever said, nor have the residents ever said, we wanted to stop or close access, as was claimed. For full disclosure, all of the letters and photo documentation that the residents have put together is now out in that corridor on poster boards. So you can see there is consistent documentation of attempting to find a reasonable solution that meets both our needs and the regular users of the woods. Even like the parking garages in Boston, there are peak times when things get full. Then you share out other access points. If it's not convenient for somebody, I'm sorry, some days it's not convenient. Just like today, I had somebody else's dogs come through my dog door. It's not convenient. But you know what? You figure it out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please come forward. And tell us your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name's Jeff Morgan. I live at 495 Monument Street. I have been walking with my children in the Estabrook Woods for about 20 years and was shocked by the sort of change in the atmosphere. It didn't feel like Concord anymore when I went up to Estabrook Woods, up the end of Estabrook Road just a couple of days ago. I couldn't find parking. I had to come back later. I agree that there are peak hours. The peak hours are when your children come home from school, when it's a nice day, when people want to go for a walk in the woods. Personally, I can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but my kids can't. I don't feel comfortable letting my kids and my dogs out on Monument Street or Lowell Road. Peak hours are also rush hour. On weekends, there are lots of bicyclists. We had one dog killed. We certainly don't want to wait until a pedestrian's killed. I think the Estabrook Woods access is clearly the safest and most desirable access point, and I think it makes sense to make it safer and more desirable for all. Fences could secure properties of landholders whose rights are now potentially infringed by individuals who don't follow the posted signs. Widening the road a little bit and installing a little bit more parking would permit more Concord residents to enjoy that access point.
Thank you.
Also, cleaning up after the horses might be helpful just as much as cleaning up after the dogs. Just say that as a dog walker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How are we doing on time? It's 7:17. Please come.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Patricia Geyer. I live at 260 Estabrook Road. I've listened very carefully to everything here. I am a lover of this asset as much as everyone else is here, but this asset is fragile. It is a matter of dog poop, and it is a matter of cars. I have a small business where I run in and out of my house 6 or 7 times a day, and I've actually stopped people on the road and asked who are walking, what do you think about the parking? Most of them have great smiles on their face, and they say to me, and I quote, I feel like I'm starting to get in the woods just when I turn on Estabrook Road. I don't feel like I've got cars racing down, potentially hurting me, my dogs, the kids. I feel like now I'm actually accessing this resource safely from the end of the road. Thank you for the signs. Some of those people are here tonight. There are many more, but I think you need to know that if you stopped and asked some of those walkers, they have big smiles on their faces. Now, when it comes to peak hours, hours of whether it's after school hours, I'm very sensitive to kids, or whether it's the cross-country season, we access the woods too as residents, okay? And we're perfectly willing, I can speak on behalf of all of the residents there, to have people come and enjoy that resource. But it has to be done safely. And we've had many, too many close calls. One close call during Thanksgiving Friday, peak time people want to access. In the middle of Estabrook Road, someone turned into a private driveway, accessed private property on that drive, and then someone behind that person tried to do a 3-point turn behind that person while they were backing up, because everyone thinks it's a quiet road. So the person who was backing up originally didn't think to look that someone would 3-point turn right behind them, didn't access the way that some of us have given the land up the street to have that nice turnaround, wanted to turn in the middle of the road. And so part of the problem, is if parking goes on in the middle of the road, people genuinely don't go up to the end of the road to then turn around to go back, right? Yeah. And so what I saw on Thanksgiving, that beautiful, glorious day, was really a statement of how too many cars in this resource will seriously not only harm the resource, but will create more safety problems.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to us this evening? Yeah, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Ilka Savanto. I live at 5 Thornton Lane in West Concord. If there's going to be another hearing, it would be very helpful to have a map that we could look at. The Department of Public Works or somebody must have something like that. I'd like to have some information about how many abutters there are who are concerned about this. I'd also like to have a little bit better information on the frequency of use of this access. I know that may require some, like a traffic or a pedestrian study, because I go there in the summer mostly, either bicycling or with a group of senior citizens to take a hike. I've never had a real parking problem, and I agree that we should park off the road so that fire trucks can get by. But more important, to get a picture of what we're really talking about, both visually and some statistics on the numbers of people that use this place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good suggestion. Anyone else out? Way over on this side want to speak to us? Thank you.
Hi, Bob Schulman, 680 Main Street. Unlike many of the people in this room, I'm a relatively short-time resident of Concord. I've only been here for 10 years, so I hope you listen to me as much as you listen to everyone else. I'd also like to thank the people on Estabrook Road. I've frankly been amazed at the generosity of the people and good spirit with which it seemed that they put up with us. I'm a dog walker. I'm currently down to 2 dogs. I used to have 3. And I used to use Estabrook more frequently than I have over the past couple of years. It seems that there was an incident with your family's donkey, I guess a year and a half or 2 years ago. And ever since then, it's seemed not as friendly up in Estabrook. And so frankly, I haven't used it. I've gone instead to Mount Misery and Lincoln, which just seems wrong. You know, as a Concord resident, I think I should feel a better sense of, or at least an equivalent sense of welcome at the town's own resources than having to go over to some other town and pester them. So I'm hoping that some happy solution can be brought here with respect to all the things that have been brought up. I will say that even before the parking had been restricted, I've been there at peak times when there was a lot more parking up there, and even then found that I just couldn't park and had to turn around and go somewhere else. So yeah, peak times are peak times, and it's a bear. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
7 minutes.
I think we have a couple more minutes for folks. It's 7:23. Anybody in the hallway there who we can't see who would like to come forward? Would you like to come and talk to us, please? Thank you. Sorry you had to stand in the hallway.
Lisa Gainsborough, 899 Lowell Road. Although I do have private access to Estabrook off Hugh Cowgill Road from my house, sometimes I do like to meet friends after school drop-off and whatnot and go into Estabrook. And I've kind of learned the rules of the neighborhood since I've been parking there. But a question is, in terms of dogs running in the pasture and also on the Rasmussen's land, there is a sign. I think it says, keep your dog leashed to the entrance. And maybe a nice solution might be keep your dogs leashed until the entrance to Estabrook, which is, I don't know, 200 or 300 yards beyond that. That might be a nice way to, you know, let people access it and behave better. I learned that on my own when I had a puppy, and he would do that, and I would retrieve him. So I kind of learned that on my own, but I think the sign reads differently right now. So just a suggestion.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else in the hallway out there who would like to come forward and speak to us? Do I see no?
I'm Candace Nelson. I live at 321 Hayward Mill Road in Thoreau Hills. I'm a cross-country skier, and my question really is to the Chief of Police. It would seem to me that this winter is not the best, most representative time for an effective pilot, because we haven't had the big snow that we had last winter. And I would imagine that the skiers haven't been out in force this winter the way we were last winter. So I'm curious as to how we really get the data that you need, particularly in the winter, which is when I experience the parking issues and problems in Estabrook, and it is the best place. I will just say that it's also really hard to go into those woods from another place that you don't know, because there are no maps. It's really easy to get lost. Once you know your place, you know your trails, you go in, you use them. If I had to go off Lowell, I'm not sure I'll get out of the woods. So that's just, I am curious about the pilot and it being getting the effective data that you need this winter.
We may have a chance this weekend. Last winter, we all acknowledged, was an extraordinary winter. There was more snow than ever before, and so it caused problems everywhere. I'm sure the problems were exacerbated last winter because the snow removal was just so difficult.
Yeah, but you could ski anywhere.
You could. You would start at the top and ski right down. All right, it is now 7:26. Do we have everyone's comments? Yes, would you like to come forward, please, and introduce yourself? I think this is our last comment for the evening.
So I've heard a lot of really great suggestions about the leashing of the dogs, and I think everyone is in agreement that for the safety of the animals and of the people, it's really wise for the visitors to have their dogs leashed until they're beyond the residences. And therefore, they won't be, enticed to chase the livestock or get into the houses or what have you. And given that that's probably the direction that we should go with on Estabrook Road, the idea that people are concerned about the other access points, such as on Monument, also near Punkatasset, where the town actually owns land. That's the only part of Estabrook that the town actually owns. And also off of Lowell, people were talking about they don't feel safe. And I think that what they really are saying is they don't feel safe letting their animals out. And again, if they're leashed and they have control of them, I don't think they really need to fear letting them out at those access points. And I think that, if we adopt that kind of idea that the animals really aren't safe until they're in the woods, way into the woods, we might be able to utilize those other access points and increase the visitation to the woods. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think we've come to the end of our comment period for this evening just because we've run out of time. I want to say that I appreciate everybody's honest and thoughtful comments for the respectful way in which they were delivered this evening. Coming into this meeting, I didn't know what to expect. It could have been a very heated evening, and I really appreciate that everybody presented their points of view, and I think we heard a lot here. And I would encourage you that if you still have things that you didn't get to say tonight, but you want to communicate with us, I believe all of our email addresses are on the town website. I'm a.kaufman@concordma.gov. It's each of us is similar. It's our first initial last name at concordma.gov. Please send us your thoughts. We read everything. We do not deliberate outside of a public meeting, though, so you can have, that we don't talk among ourselves or have other deliberations without it being a posted public meeting. So I think at this point, does anybody else have anything you want to conclude with? So I appreciate everybody coming, and again, apologies for the standing room only. Next time when we convene, I think we'll look for having a larger space to meet in so that everyone can have a seat the entire time. Do I have a motion at this point for, I'm going to have to change our agenda some because we don't have time to.
We're not going to deal with the public-private partnership.
I don't think we have.
Move to adjourn.
Shall I do what?
So the question is, should we make nominations for the public-private partnership and then adjourn?
Sure.
Do we know what we want to do?
Do we know what we want to do?
We haven't talked about this. Thank you all for staying.
If we haven't talked about
Feel free to stay for the caucus, everybody.
Yes, at 7:30, and now is the town caucus, or just in the hearing room down the road, down the hall.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing
So-
that. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you for
Thanks for coming.
So-
For coming.
Good evening. I'm Anita Techley, the town clerk in Concord. I want to welcome you all and thank you for coming out on this frigid night. Didn't expect the traffic jam on your entry into the room. I apologize for that. And I'm going to now call the 2016 caucus to order. I would remind you all, if you did not pick up one of these ballots on your way in, I would ask you to do so now. One of the checkers in back, you check in by last name. And the only other thing I want to remind those of you who are current office holders in Concord, tomorrow is the deadline for filing your campaign finance report. It doesn't matter whether you spent money, whether you received money, or whether you have no money in the bank. Doesn't matter. You still need to file with me that all of those things exist, that you have neither a campaign fund, you didn't collect any money this past year, and you didn't spend any money on your campaign. So do check in with me. I have a form. You can just sign your name on the form, and I'll fill out the rest to make it easy for you. I've received one such report for this year, but there are a lot more incumbents in office that I have not received the reports for. So do check with me before the end of the evening. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 53, Section 118, as town clerk, I will preside until a chair is elected. I'm now going to declare the meeting open for nominations for chair of the caucus. Are there any nominations?
For chair of the caucus, I'd like to nominate Gary Clayton of 22 Center Village Drive.
Thank you. Ms. Woodward has nominated Gary Clayton. Is there a second? Are there here any other nominations for chair of the caucus? Hearing none, I'd like to close nominations. Is there a second for that? All those in favor of closing the nominations, please say aye. Opposed? Nay. All right, the nominations are closed. Those in favor of Gary Clayton as chair of the caucus, please say aye. Any opposed? I declare that Gary Clayton has been elected to serve as chair of the caucus.
Thank you, Anita, and good evening, all. There are a number of matters that I need to address as we begin the work of this caucus. Again, thank you all for being here. First, I want to note that I have inspected the notice of the caucus for compliance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 53, Section 118, and find that it is in order. The notice was posted in 8 places throughout Concord, and a notice appeared in the Concord Journal, on the town's website, and was distributed electronically to subscribers of News and Notes. I have also determined that a quorum is present this evening as well. A quorum constitutes 25 registered voters. With that now determined, I do want to call for the nomination of a clerk for this caucus. Do I hear any nominations? Thank you, Mr. Perry. Are there any other nominations? Hearing or seeing none. Is there a second on the nomination? I note a second. All those in favor of closing the nominations, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. We'll move on now to vote on the motion that's been presented by Mr. Perry. All those in favor of Mr. Perry's motion, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Any nays? The ayes have it. Ms. Lauer is now identified and selected as the clerk of this caucus. I so declare. Thank you. The purpose of the caucus is to nominate a candidate or candidates for each office to be filled. The offices to be filled this year are as follows. 1 moderator for a 1-year term, 2 members of the Board of Selectmen for 3-year terms, and let me note that while town meeting has adopted the new terminology for select board, that action has not yet been affirmed by our state legislature. So for the purposes of the caucus this evening, I will refer to it as the Board of Selectmen. Also, we are looking to nominate 2 members of the school committee, each for 3-year terms, and finally, 1 member of the Concord Housing Authority for a 5-year term. The caucus procedure is described by Mass General Law, Section 53, Section 121, is as follows. If more than 1 person is nominated for an office, 2 persons receiving the highest number of votes cast shall be declared nominated for such office by this caucus. If the voting results in a tie vote among the candidates receiving the smallest number of votes, which, but for the tie vote, would entitle a person receiving such a number to appear as a nominee, all candidates participating in such tie votes shall be nominees. If a person receives less than 8% of the votes of those voting for nominees, he or she shall be declared nominated. Not nominated. That was a test. I just wanted to see if you were following along, because I clearly was not. I'll repeat that. If a person receives less than 8% of the votes of those nominating for the nominees, he or she shall not be declared nominated. And I am about to propose a motion that the caucus adopt a following motion as has been done in the past, and it is this. It shall be the rule of the caucus that if the number of persons nominated as candidates for an office does not exceed twice the number of persons to be elected to such office, the chair shall, unless there is a request from a voter at the caucus that a ballot be taken, declare such persons to be nominees of the caucus for such office. That is the motion I have now presented, and I would entertain a second to that motion. Thank you. Unless there's any other discussion, I would ask that those who are in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. And I declare the motion carries. Thank you. We shall receive the nominations in the order listed. For each office, I'll ask the nominators to come forward and draw numbers for the order of nominations. Each speaker is to state his or her own name and address, and the nominators to write the nominee's name and address on the whiteboard and make a nominating speech, the whiteboard being here to my immediate right. A seconder is required, but a seconding speech is optional. So let us begin with and proceed with the nominations. For moderator, ask, please come forward, please. Yeah, do we have, Anita reminds me, are there, clearly we'll have 1 nomination for a moderator. Are there any others anticipated this evening? And if not, then I think you do not have to draw at this point, but rather write name and address, and then if you'd like, again, to make some remarks.
Carmen Reese has announced her intention to run for moderator, and tonight I'm delighted to nominate her for this position. Carmen has the experience and the capability to serve Concord as moderator. You can check out the specifics on her website, www.carmenreese.com. Not only does Carmen have the professional credentials as an attorney and as a mediator, but she has also demonstrated her commitment to Concord while serving 6 years as an elected member of the Select Board, or Board of Selectmen. For 5 of the years that I have known Carmen, we served on the Board of Selectmen together. Carmen's interest in and knowledge of municipal government has been strengthened by her experience on this board. She served as the liaison to the Town Governance Study Committee and attended the majority of the meetings and public hearings, focusing on improvements to good governance and ways to make town meeting more productive and more accessible to citizens. A successful moderator exhibits important skills. She should be well organized and committed to good government. She should be knowledgeable in town meeting details and dedicated to clear communication. And finally, the moderator should be fair and impartial. The moderator provides the framework and leadership for civil discourse at town meeting. As citizens, we place our trust in the moderator to lead the legislative process, and our respect for the moderator's performance mirrors our respect for the town meeting process. Carmen is a strong advocate for our open town meeting, and she has the organization, communication, mediation, and leadership skills to effectively serve as moderator. For these reasons, I enthusiastically nominate Carmen tonight. Please support her in the March election.
Thank you, Elise. Do we have a second, please? Thank you.
For all the reasons just mentioned by Elise, Woodward, and more, I am honored to nominate Carmen Reese's nomination for town moderator. James Lyon, 51 Mitchell Road in Concord. I've worked with Carmen at the committee level of town government for over 4 years now, and have found it to be extremely productive and gratifying experience. We first met while Carmen was on the Board of Selectmen, now the Select Board. I was chairing the White Pond Advisory Committee and beginning the process of applying for CPC funding. With Carmen's knowledge and expertise, which were essential, and forged a positive working relationship. I'm happy to say we were successful in obtaining the funding, and work continues to be done at White Pond and its watershed, helping ensure this town treasure for generations to come. With Carmen's guidance and tutelage, I am now a committee member for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Advisory Committee and look forward to serving on other town committees in the future. One main reason for this is because of Carmen's guidance over the past few years. I have participated in and observed select board meetings chaired by Carmen as well. These meetings have held to swift agendas, as well as listening and responding to the needs of our citizens in a timely and respectful manner. It is because of these qualities I feel that Carmen Reese is the best choice for town moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations for moderator at this point? Seeing and hearing none, I declare that Carmen Reese is the caucus's nominee for town moderator. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to the 2 seats for members of the Board of Selectmen. Again, each of these positions is for a 3-year term. How many nominees do we have this evening for? I see 1, 2. I'm going to ask you to come up and indeed draw a number from the basket to determine the order in which you will speak. Are there any other nominators? Thank you. And if you would identify yourself, please.
I shall. Hi. My name is Mav Pardee. I live at 87 Stowe Street, and I've known Alice Kaufman since I moved to town 28 years ago, and our sons were in the first grade at Alcott School together. 3 years ago, I had the privilege of nominating Alice for the Select Board, Board of Selectmen. She was elected and is presently the chair. Tonight, I'm here to nominate Alice for a second term. Alice Kaufman is committed to open and transparent government. She listens carefully to the concerns and the interests of the citizens of Concord, and she often helps negotiate solutions to problems, some of them small and some of them complex and pretty difficult. She encouraged broader citizen engagement in town affairs by helping expand communication methods to include new media and broader use of CCTV. Alice is an environmentalist with a long career in local, state, and federal government. She recognizes that we need to make some decisions on local energy and planning policies to help prepare Concord for the impacts of climate change. Two efforts underway are the comprehensive long-range plan and the development of an energy task force. In a second term, Alice can help the town make progress in both these areas. Alice is also committed to planning for a diverse housing stock in our town to encourage young families, people of limited means, and older residents ready to downsize to either move to or stay in our wonderful town. She recognizes that the business community is central to Concord's economic vitality and works with business owners to ensure that the vibrant Concord Center and West Concord shopping and restaurants both encourage visitors to our town and provide places for Concordians to gather. In her term on the Select Board, Alice has been liaison to a dizzying array of committees and boards. I'll just name a couple of them: the Finance Committee, the School Committee, the Planning Board, the Natural Resources Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and another half dozen. Alice is smart, thorough, and hardworking. In her first term, she gained experience and a solid understanding of the role of local government and the role we citizens play in shaping life in Concord. I urge you to use her talents on our behalf again by considering her for a second term on the Concord Select Board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a second for Alice's nomination? And I see someone coming forward. Thank you. And again, if you would please identify yourself, name and address. Thank you.
Sigmund Roos, 36 Wood Street. It's my honor to second the nomination of Alice Kaufman for the Board of Selectmen, Select Board.
Thank you very much. We have, I know, a second nomination. And Stan, if you want to come forward and place that name on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I'm Stan Black, 17 Edmonds Road. I am honored to place before this caucus the name of Tom McCain for a vacant seat on our Board of Selectmen this year. Tom has an itch, and it's for governance. After college and law school at George Washington and his entrance into the bar in 1975, Tom went on to work at, started working at the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. From there, he went to the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office. And if that wasn't enough punishment, he went to the U.S. Consumers Product Safety Commission. And while while doing that, he married Sylvia Wyman, who is back there with him. And in the process, Tom also started his own law firm in Boston, where he specializes in criminal defense, family law, and real estate. They have raised 3 boys in Concord through the Willard schools, Adam, Matthew, and Benjamin, and have done all the parental governance that requires as well, including soccer and softball. And Tom was also on the board of trustees at Fenn. Now he is on to the corporation at Emerson Healthcare System and currently serves on our Board of Health with the previous spot on our Cable TV Advisory Commission. I know that Tom is an intelligent, independent, curious, and always affable character. And it's with great pleasure that I nominate him for our Board of Selectmen and allow him the opportunity to scratch that itch. I think we'll all be better for it.
Thank you, Stan. Is there a second for Tom's nomination? Please come forward.
Sure. My name is Sadhna Upadhyay, and I live on 156 Carolina Heights in Concord, and I'm really honored to second the nomination of Tom McCain. I've known him for at least 20 years now, and I've served as a co-chair of Democratic Town Committee. So all Democrats in Concord know Tom very well, and we know for his fairness, his leadership, and we really look forward to supporting him in this role.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominees for the Board of Selectmen? Seeing and hearing none, I declare Alice and Tom to be the nominees of this caucus. I'd ask both Tom and Alice to stand and be recognized by the audience this evening. Thank you very much. We will now move on to consider nominations for the school committee. As I noted in my earlier remarks, there are 2 seats open for the school committee. Each position has a 3-year term. Could I have an indication of the number of nominators for those seeking these 2 positions? 1, 2, 3. So if you would come forward, please, we're going to ask you to draw a number from the basket to simply determine the order in which you as a nominator will speak. Who's? Yeah, you do have to tell us which number you had. You're number 1. Thank you. If you would please write your candidate's name and address on the board. Thank you. Yeah, of course. Thank you. And your name and address, please.
Yes, thanks. Jennifer Munn, 6 Bridgecourt Lane. It is an honor, a pleasure, and honestly an imperative that I nominate Kathleen Snook for school committee. Kathy and I served together on school committee, and during that time and since, I have witnessed the rational, expert, and even-handed ways in which she approaches her work of the school committee and service to the town of Concord. Her leadership and educational acumen derive from her extraordinarily relevant background. As the 2nd highest ranking cadet, Kathy graduated from the first co-ed class at the United States Military Academy at West Point with a degree in engineering. She later attained a master's in applied mathematics and a doctoral degree in curriculum and teaching, both from Boston University. Kathy taught mathematics at West Point for more than 10 years and held a number of faculty leadership positions. Kathy's experience in teaching and learning drew the attention of the Mathematics Association of America, for which she served on many committees. She has presented extensively at national conferences on teaching and learning, assessment, and curriculum. Last week, Kathy and I were taking a walk, and I asked her what she had been doing since New Year's. She casually mentioned that the previous weekend, she had been judging the International High School Math Contest in modeling. She was the co-director this year and will be the director of the contest next year. She helped create and then judge the problems the world's best and brightest high school math students competed to solve. Kathy is not only highly regarded nationally, she also has proven to be an outstanding contributor on the local level. Kathy and her husband, Scott, have made Concord their home twice, returning after teaching appointments at West Point. Their 5 children attended Concord's public schools, and Kathy has tutored math at the Math Resource Center at Concord Carlisle High School. Her service to the town, the schools, youth sports, and Holy Family Parish is far-reaching, but tonight I want to focus on her work on the school committees. In her first term, Kathy assumed a leadership role as vice chair of the Concord School Committee. She and Joanna Boynton initiated the school committee community coffees that offer constituents an informal opportunity to seek more information and clarity around the issues before the committees. During her first budget cycle, Kathy analyzed annual cost growth over a 5-year period and created accessible presentations of charts and graphs to help all stakeholders better understand the district's costs and budgeting objectives. Last year, Kathy led a budget roadshow of sorts and presented at each school site, the League of Women Voters Forum, and the Fowler Library, and more. There was 1 week last April where there was a budget presentation every single day or evening. Kathy was elected chair of the Concord School Committee in her second year. She served on the Dignity Committee, which was the follow-on to the original TELMAS Committee, working with teachers and administrators to repair and strengthen relationships. Kathy is in her second year of leading the effort to review and update the school committee policy manual. Her inclusive, methodical, and calm problem-solving style and her passion for public education is an asset to the committee, the districts, and the community. She is an empathetic leader and teacher who can synthesize complex concepts and appreciate. She engenders the respect, admiration, and friendship with all of those with whom she works and serves. And I know firsthand how difficult it is for a committee when members, like myself, serve only a single term. We need consistency and we need knowledgeable leadership. I can think of no other current or former elected official in Concord with a professional and personal background more perfectly aligned to a town board than Kathy Snooks is to the school committee. Let's make March 1st truly a Super Tuesday by re-electing Kathy Snook to school committee.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second? Please, would you like to come forward? Again, your name and address, please.
My name is Scott Snook, and I live at 471 Old Road to 9 Acre Corner. Since I'm Kathy's husband, obviously I'm biased. However, perhaps not in the way you might suspect. Having watched her serve on our school committee for the past 3 years, and observed up close and personal the long hours and sometimes uninformed personal attacks, literally working in a full-time, unpaid, and largely thankless job. In my opinion, one truly has to be a glutton for punishment to do this. Only a madman or crazy husband would support his wife's calling to do it again. I was a long-term scholar of organizational leadership, performance, and change. I've studied literally thousands of leaders in my professional career. Of one thing I'm certain: quality leadership matters. It's also incredibly hard to find. Good leaders are in scarce supply. And why? Because to lead effectively requires a list of qualities rarely found in one person. Some of these qualities include character, passion, intelligence, patience, role-specific knowledge and skills, experience, interpersonal expertise, and an unwavering commitment to goals larger than self. So how does my wife stack up against this list? Having raised 5 children who have matriculated through Concord Public Schools, Kathy intimately understands a parent's perspective. Having taught in her field at the very highest levels for years, Kathy not only understands education, but she is truly a teacher at heart. With a doctorate in education, she is also a nationally recognized and published expert in curriculum design and the effective use of technology in her classrooms. Graduating as the highest-ranking woman in the first class with women at West Point, and having served with distinction for over 22 years as a commissioned officer in our Army, a largely male-dominated profession, I might add, she is not only an experienced leader, but one tough lady. I challenge you to find anyone who has served closely in any capacity with Kathy over her past 40-plus years of public service, who has anything bad to say about her. You might find people who disagreed with her, that's leading, but no one who truly knows her doesn't respect her. Parent, teacher, expert in education, and an experienced leader of character. When it comes to nominating someone to serve on our school committee, it's hard to imagine anyone more qualified. In that regard, she is truly that rare unicorn. And on a more personal note, as some of you might know, Kathy and I, as parents, have had a rough couple months. So a few weeks ago, when she told me that she wanted to serve another term, I thought she was crazy, truly. But then again, no. This is who she is, one incredibly talented, passionate woman who cares so deeply about our children and our schools that she simply cannot help herself. She simply has to serve, even if that means 3 more years of pain and suffering for me. And so as her crazy, loving husband, I reluctantly and wholeheartedly second Kathy Snook's nomination to serve a 2nd term on our school committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our second nominee, please come forward. Or first, are you number 2? 2. Come forward. We found number 2. If you would write your candidate's name and address on the whiteboard, please. I'm glad you erased this because I couldn't. Yeah. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Name and address, please.
William Cusin, 27-5 Concord Green, representing the old folks in town. It gives me great pleasure this evening to nominate Johanna Boynton for another 3-year term on the Concord School Committee. As Johanna describes committee accomplishments during her tenure, it becomes readily apparent that those accomplishments are wide-ranging and significant. Johanna describes her initial term thus, and I quote, "I am genuinely enjoying my role as a Concord School Committee member and appreciate the support I have been given by so many in Concord and Carlisle." Let me read her words as she, with justifiable pride, describes the important tasks undertaken by the present school committee. "I feel we have accomplished a great deal in the last 3 years," she says. "We oversaw the successful completion of the CCHS building project on scope, time, and budget. We secured a permanent location for the school transportation facility. We supervised the completion of the first 2 phases of the CC at Play project. We reintroduced comprehensive Rainbow Book to streamline communication and town meeting approval of the annual budgets. We instituted new advisory committees to involve the community in key issues, such as the school calendar and alternative fuel buses. We established a practice of setting annual goals for the school committee, with the first focused on improving communication with the community. The overall tenor of discourse has improved. While much has been accomplished," she goes on to say, "there is much yet to be done. I hope to build on the gains we have made to promote transparency, communication, and trust among all those who have a stake in our schools. I hope to perpetuate a culture of true collaboration between the administration and the faculty who are directly responsible for educating our children. And I hope to play a leadership role in developing a 5-year strategic vision for the district and hiring a superintendent who has the vision and capability to lead our great schools. For my part, I have known the Boynton family for many years. Grandfather to John was my dentist. In fact, I think I probably still have some fillings in my mouth that I acquired at the ripe age of 10 or 11. I have gotten to know Johanna more recently. I find her bright, articulate, and engaging, with a singular ability to listen, ask the right questions, and facilitate discussion. In her words, "I am grateful for all the support I have had the past 3 years, and I hope you will give me the opportunity to continue to serve you as a Concord School Committee member. I am glad she is running for re-election, and I urge your support as well." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second nomination? Please come forward.
Tracy Morano, 39 Partridge Lane. It's with great pleasure and privilege that I second Joanna Boynton for School Committee. I've known Joanna and her family for the past 9 years. We each have 4 children that have overlapped in classrooms, sports teams, and on stage. She's worn many hats over the years: coach, teacher, mother, community leader, and CEO. She's served as PTG president and the school advisory council at the Alcott School. And she has done so many things that I can't even begin to keep going with that. Joanna has served on the school committee for the past 3 years and is currently chair of the Concord Carlisle School Committee. She's accomplished so much during her tenure on the school committee. She's listened to teachers at all levels and worked with the administration to find common ground. She's looking forward to taking a leadership role in the 5-year strategic plan and in hiring our next superintendent. Both are extremely important to the continued success of our district. Joanna worked with the CCHS Building Committee, and today we have a beautiful new high school that we both have kids at that we can all be proud of. The project was completed on time, and our children and our teachers are so fortunate to have an academic learning environment where they can truly strive. As many of you know, the town's been working on a transportation solution for the bus depot. Joanna has been a leader in this process and has worked countless hours and spent many hours away from her family to get this done. She's worked collaboratively and creatively with many of the town committees and private companies to come up with a solution for relocating the bus depot. Collaboration has been the key to Joanna's ability to get the job done. Joanna's both positive and proactive, and if there's a problem, she always looks towards the solution. I'm currently the PTG president at Alcott, and I've worked with Joanna closely for the past 2 years. She is always open to feedback and will look into any issue that may come up. There's been more transparency over the past few years, and therefore, more trust has been developed. Joanna's a listener. If you have an idea or an opinion, you can always count on her to listen. Her last campaign, she started listening sessions with Kathy Snook, and it's been very helpful to the progress of our district. When Joanna started her journey on school committee, at the heart of it all was the kids. She does what she does every day for her children and for all of our children. They are her priority and her motivation. She is dedicated and committed to this community. It is my honor to second Joanna Boynton for school committee.
Thank you very much. And I believe we have a third nominee.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Alan Whitney, 178 Heathsbridge Road, and it is my pleasure to nominate Bob Grom for the Concord and Concord Carlisle School Committee. As a young student in his homeland, Germany, Bob was fascinated by the United States and spent many hours studying and learning about the United States, judging it to be a land of greater opportunity and a more open society. When Bob was just a lad of 16, his older sister, who a few years earlier had married a U.S. Air Force sergeant, invited him to live with her in Concord to continue his education at Concord Carlisle High School. After graduating from CCHS and after receiving a degree in economics from University of Massachusetts, Bob got married and started a career as a financial investment advisor. Just 3 years after graduating from college, Bob and his wife moved back to Concord to raise their children in a town that could offer them the same educational opportunities as he had experienced. Since his retirement several years ago, Bob has taken an active interest in Concord's town governance, regularly attending school committee, select board, and finance committee meetings. These have given him considerable insight into the workings of the school committee and the many issues and challenges that face superior quality school districts such as ours. Bob's goal in joining this school committee is to help ensure that Concord students of today and tomorrow continue to enjoy and benefit from the same educational opportunities that he was offered. Bob views good public schools as a result of collaboration, community input, and integrity of process, with an underlying foundation of educational, fiscal, and community sustainability. The three pillars underlying Concord's education system must be communications, compassion, and excellence, and must also include a school committee that is accountable to the community, that truly values community input, and that is open and willing to thoughtfully engage with citizen attendees at school committee meetings. Bob is an excellent listener, not afraid to ask the tough questions, and is a respectful and hardworking member of groups he has worked with. I encourage you to endorse Bob as one of the candidates for Concord School Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And do we have a second nominator, please? Please come forward. Thanks. Name and address.
I'm Valerie Tratnick, 43 Hill Street. I am very happy to support and second a nomination for Robert Grom for a seat on the Concord School Committees. About 2 years ago, somebody new began to show up in the Observer section at Concord School Committee meetings who showed a great interest in what was being said and who seemed very interested in following the decision-making process for our schools. It is always good to see individuals take the time to be engaged and to inform themselves. But Bob's approach was one especially worth noting. He is a great listener and is interested in gathering multiple points of view so that he can be balanced and fair in his thinking. Until recently, I did not know that Bob's background was as a financial advisor, but it makes perfect sense that he has continued to apply analytical thinking along with an understanding of human nature to the questions that have arisen regarding the direction of our schools. We can depend on Bob to come to the table with common sense and a sense of fairness and a genuine desire to find solutions that will best represent all of the people of Concord. I know that Bob believes in outreach and consensus building. I know that he will hear and, most importantly, truly consider citizens' concerns. Bob has lived in Concord a long time. He feels fortunate that he benefited from a high school education at Concord Carlisle, as did his children, and so he will contribute as a citizen with some perspective. I have heard Bob ask searching questions. He considers what was best about his family's experience here, along with what will be the best way to bring technology and 21st century learning skills to our children without throwing away what has been the heart of a great educational system, that is, healthy and trusting relationships between children, parents, teachers, administrators, and taxpayer. It has been my pleasure to watch Bob step up to the plate, appearing at multiple meetings, talking with school committee members and others, participating in the Grass Fields for Safe Sports organization, reaching out to others in the community that have asked questions, and researching educational subjects and sharing what he learns. Last spring, one school committee member thanked this concerned citizen publicly for his thoughtful and level-headed approach. Now, as we enter a period of search for new school leadership, we need Robert Grom to join us in an official manner at a seat on the school committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominees for the school committee? Seeing and hearing none, and consistent with the motion that this caucus adopted earlier this evening, I want to and will declare that the three nominees are indeed nominees of this caucus for the school committee. If Bob, Johanna, and Kathy could please stand, please, and be recognized by this caucus. Thank you. We have one more matter of business this evening relative to elected positions, and that is for the Concord Housing Authority. We have one position, one seat as a member of the Concord Housing Authority. As I noted previously, this is for a 5-year term. Do we have any nominators present? I see one, and is there any other? Then if you would please come forward and sign in, please. Thank you.
I'm Hester Hill-Schnipper. I live at 631 Main Street, and I am here to nominate myself with a fair amount of embarrassment. The truth is that I didn't realize until I communicated with Anita today that since I had gathered I think actually 59 signatures in order to submit my interest in paper, that it would also be wise for me to show up tonight. And I couldn't think of anybody who owed me enough that I could get in touch with him or her today and say, could you come? So here I am. I've lived in Concord since 1979, have raised 2 daughters, here very happily, who, thanks in good part to the Concord Public Schools, have gone on to make good lives, for themselves. Through all those years and continuing now, I have worked in Boston at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, used to be just Beth Israel Hospital. I managed the oncology social work group there, and for all these years have been very active within the city of Boston, regionally, nationally, internationally, even in a number of cancer organizations. I've written 2 books. The first is called Woman to Woman, a guide for women newly diagnosed with breast cancer. The second is called After Breast Cancer, a common sense guide for life after treatment. I have been adjunct faculty at both the Boston University and Simmons College Schools of Social Work. So you can tell what I've done, like many people I'm sure in this room, is basically worked all the time and not had as much time as I would have liked to become involved in town, and it has felt as though now there is a little time. What I love most about my professional work, though, are the hours every day that I spend with patients. And my patients, obviously, are people living with cancer and their families. And for doing this for 35 plus years, I have a lot of comfort and quite a lot of understanding about the issues related to illness, to aging, to loss, to diminished income, to many of the kinds of life problems which I know become important in the work of the Housing Authority. Having also lived in Concord all these years, I've seen many of the changes in town, some of which are terrific, some of which seem less so, and am absolutely committed to trying to help make it possible for diverse people to live here and make this town even richer than it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a second nominator? And I see, would you care to make any remarks at this point, or simply seconding the nomination, Mr.? Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any other nominees for the position at and on the board of the Housing Authority? Seeing and hearing none, again, consistent with the motion adopted by this caucus earlier this evening, I declare Hester as the nominee of the caucus for the Concord Housing Authority. Please. So before this caucus adjourns, don't run for the doors yet. I have a couple of reminders for all of us. First of all, for those individuals who were nominated this evening by this caucus, you do need to see Anita before you leave. She has some paperwork for you to take care of, so please do so. Second, let me extend my thanks to each of the individuals who have stepped forward to participate in the electoral process relative to the governance of our town. Thank you very much on behalf of all the residents of this community. It's a significant commitment. We are grateful. Third, we begin the season of electoral activity in Concord this evening. It continues, and there are a number of important dates that I want to highlight for you. One is that on February 21st, that's a Sunday, February 21st, the League of Women Voters will be sponsoring a candidates forum beginning at 2 p.m., February 21st, in this room at 2 p.m. So please note, it's an excellent opportunity to see and hear all the candidates that are running for elective office in Concord. Next, we have all received in the mail recently a warrant for a special town meeting that has been called by our select board for Thursday, February 4th at 7 p.m. at Concord Carlisle High School. please note again, and this is as much for those who are participating this evening in our television audience, I want you to note that that special town meeting has been called. There's also a joint public hearing in preparation for that town meeting. That is scheduled for January 27th at 7 p.m. in this room as well. And then, finally, there are some other important dates to note. Our town election, where the town will come together to vote on those candidates who have stepped forward to serve our community. The date of that election is March 1st. That's a Tuesday, March 1st. It happens to coincide with the U.S. presidential primary. So expect to see all of you and our neighbors at the polling stations on March 1st. And then, of course, we move into the business of town governance throughout the winter and early spring months with our town meeting, regular annual town meeting scheduled for Monday, April 4th. There are, of course, a number of public hearings that will be held prior to that, beginning in February. All of that information is on the town's website. There's also copies, printed copies of that information and that schedule available here at the townhouse as well. And again, for those members of the viewing audience, I want to encourage you to make sure you have that information, note those dates, and to actively participate in the governance of our community. Unless there's any other business to be brought forward for this caucus, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the 2016 Town Caucus. Do we hear a motion? Do I have a second? Any discussion? I hear none. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all again. Good night.